Welcome to episode 53 of our series on duties of the heart by Rabbi Bachya Ibn Pakuda, and now we're up to section 6, which is the gate of humility. We just completed the gate of devotion of all acts, and now we will have an explanation of the multifaceted obligation to have humility before God. So Rabbi Bahya begins. Having discussed in the preceding gate the obligation to devote all our acts to God alone, and since pride in action devoted to God affects the masters of such conduct more swiftly than all other injurious influences and greatly damages these acts, I think that the most important thing now is to follow the antidote to such pride, and that is humility. Moreover, it is clear to us that humility is the very essence of service. It is what keeps a servant from attributes of lordship and constitutes an acknowledgement to God that these are uniquely His, to the exclusion of all created things. As King David said, yours, God, is the greatness, the power, the glory, the victory, and the majesty, for all that is in heaven and on earth is yours. This is from Divrei Hayamim, chapter 29, verse 11. And also from Psalms, chapter 89, verse 7. For who in the skies can be compared to God? Who is like God amongst the heavenly beings? It also keeps a person from haughtiness, arrogance, pride, vainglory, domination, and the urge to control everything, the desire for what is above him, and similar outgrowths of pride. So now Rabbi Bachya is going to list the contents of this gate in numerical order. There are going to be 10 different sub-subjects that we're going to tackle in each separate chapter in this gate, and I'm going to list them as following. Number 1, what is humility? Number 2, into how many classes is it divided? Number 3, what induces humility? Number 4, in which situations should one practice it? Number 5, what are the methods of acquiring it? Number 6, the code of conduct a humble person should follow. Number 7, when can humility on the part of someone be taken as genuine and when not? Number 8, is humility dependent upon other virtues, or are the other virtues dependent on humility? Number 9, can pride and humility coexist within the human heart? And number 10, the benefits of humility to one's worldly interests and in the life hereafter. So a comprehensive range of aspects of humility that are going to be tackled within the next 10 chapters. So, and they're short chapters, so let's start. So chapter 1, what is humility? Humility is the soul's sense of lowliness, its acquiescence, and its lack of self-importance. It is one of the qualities of the soul, and when internalized, comes to expression externally in the form of gentle speech, a soft voice, meekness when angered, and restraint in taking revenge when one has the power to exact it. The story is told of a king before whom a man was sentenced, and a whip was brought for punishment. The king said to the man, "As God lives, were it not for my great anger with you, I would have taken strict revenge against you." And then he pardoned him. That is, precisely because the king grew angry, did he decide not to discipline the man, for he did not think it proper to satisfy his anger. It is further related of him that he used to say, "I know of no offence heavy enough to outweigh my weakness." So we are taught in various places that the Shekhinah and God will not dwell within a person who is arrogant or angry, arrogant and angry. But arrogance is the polar opposite of meekness. We're taught in many places that the Shekhinah, God, will not dwell within a person who is arrogant or angry. But arrogance here is the polar opposite of humility or meekness. So this is a very important quality to develop within ourselves, because it's the base that of the kind of dwelling for God. So if you can instill pure meekness or pure humility into your nature, it gives a dwelling place for God. Let's move on to chapter 2. This describes the 3 classes of humility. So Rabbi Bahya continues. How many kinds of humility are there? Humility can be divided into 3 classes. One of these includes human beings and many species of non-rational animals. It is poverty of spirits and passive endurance of injuries that might have been avoided, but were endured, because one is ignorant of the ways to avoid them. It is found among foolish and ignorant people, due to their slight knowledge and weak understanding of their own selves and self-worth. It is called humility by convention only, but in truth it is spiritual poverty and blindness, brought on by ignorance that has overcome the soul and prevents it from seeing what is for its own good. As it says in Job 17 verse 4, you have hidden understanding from their hearts, therefore you will not lift them up. Humility, in the true sense, is that quality which comes as a result of the uplifting of the soul, when it has raised itself above any participation in the low qualities of brute creatures, and when, on account of its superior wisdom, nobility of spirit, and clear grasp of good and ignoble qualities, it is beyond imitating the traits of the lower classes. When this is followed by humility of the soul and lowliness, humility is a praiseworthy quality. Otherwise, however, it is not counted among the admirable traits and virtues of the soul, but among the reprehensible traits. For a lowly disposition such as this is like that of the beasts. The second kind of humility is that exhibited by an individual towards another human being who dominate him, as that of the prisoner in the hands of the enemy, or of a slave in his master's power. Another example of the second kind of humility of an individual who is dependent on others and is in great need of what they possess. Such is the humility of an employee towards his employer, of a poor person towards his wealthy supporter, and of a student towards his teacher, and of the debtor unable to pay a just debt, who must therefore humble and abase himself before his creditor. As it is written in Proverbs 22 verse 7, the borrower is servant to the lender. A person may recognize that he is inadequate in the moral disciplines relevant to this world and next, and that he is ignorant of the right course. If he then meets the prophet of his generation, or a moral teacher, or one who calls him to the right path, he will be humble and lowly before him, as our masters of blessed memory said, and he quotes here from Brachot 7b, attending to the Torah is even greater than studying it. For it says in Malachim chapter 3 verse 11, Elisha ben Shaphat, who poured water on the hands of Eliyahu. It does not say who studied, but who poured. This indicates that attending to the Torah is even greater than studying it. It also says, and he quotes from Shemot 33 verse 11, but his attendant Yoshua ben Nun, a young man, would not leave the tent. Thus said King Solomon of the illiterate multitude, the borrower is servant to the lender, from Proverbs. A base fool becomes a slave to the wise, also from Proverbs. This kind of humility, though necessary by nature, is not a constant, as it is not relevant to all people and is not necessary at all times and in every place. For the prisoner after release from captivity, the slave after he redeems himself, the borrower when he pays his debt, the student when he is not with his teacher, and the poor person when not in the presence of his benefactor, are under no obligation to show humility and lowly submission to their respective former superiors. The third kind of humility is humility towards the Creator. may he be exalted. It is an obligation that applies to all people at all times and in every place. The consideration of this duty is the purpose of this gate. One who has humility of this kind is called in scriptures humble, self-deprecating, modest, broken, lowly in spirit, crushed, tender-hearted, shattered in spirit, broken-hearted, and bowed in soul. When we will speak of humility without specifying which kind, we will have in mind only this third kind, which is the highest degree of humility. To one who attains this humility, the way of closeness to God and worthiness to stand before Him is not far off. He will be accepted by the Creator and will be pleasing to Him. As it is written in Psalms 51 verse 19, true sacrifice to God is a broken spirit, a heart broken and crushed. O God, you will not scorn. So that's the basic introduction, an opening section to this gate. And it's teaching us the various types of humility. And it seems it seems that to be it seems like humility comes from being tested in certain ways, and to be kind of broken and prepared to be rebuilt, in my opinion. And it seems like it's almost like the ego has been crushed, and then you gain some level of humility that is pleasing to God. And we're going to discuss more of this in the next couple of chapters. So that's the first 2 chapters of these 10 chapters, and I look forward to continuing to describe the various aspects of humility and how we can attain them in the next episode.